Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our annual post-secondary information evening. This is all about helping you understand what it's like to transition from parent and student into the post-secondary phase. Thank you. Tonight we have alumni with us, we have some alumni parents, and we have our panel of Mr. David Harvey, our Director of Academics, Middle and Senior School. We have Mr. David Huckvale, our Director of Admission and University Placement. We may have Miss Susan Scott, depending on her internet connection, who is our Director of Student Services and Deputy Head of School. And I'm Celia Bland, Director of the Senior School. So if you think back, do you remember the day when you brought them home from the hospital in their brand new car seat? You were likely all fingers and thumbs and wondering how you'd make it through the very first night. And all of a sudden, you find yourself realizing that they are heading into their final weeks of high school. And you ask yourself, how did it happen? How will I let go? Or perhaps you're ready to kick them out the door and ask them if they'd like an early move-in date. But transitions are a time of flux. They're a time of excitement, but they're also a time of really mixed emotions. And I've been in your shoes. I've been there helping climb up the stairs and move far too many boxes into university halls of residence. And before you know it, they're all wrapped up and finished, and they're off forest firefighting, traveling to India to try and find themselves in an ashram or a South American rainforest. And next they're going on to postgrad and they're becoming the happy, healthy, successful young people we dream they will be. So this night is about you and helping you and your families transition into being university post-secondary parents. Your children, your questions. So let's get started. A couple of pieces of housekeeping. Tonight, if you have questions, do feel free to ask them in the live chat. That'll help us to stop interruption during the actual conversations. We do have videos for you. And at the very end of tonight, please do join us in the Google Meet for further conversations and further questions that you may have. So sit back and enjoy the evening. And thanks for being here.
If we could go back in time, we would give our high school selves the advice to become self-sufficient before going to university and not having to rely on your peers or your teachers to push you to get things done or study for tests or exams, because as soon as you get to university, you're pretty much on your own, and if you don't get your work done, there's no one on your back to do it for you.
So I'd probably tell my high school self not to worry as much, don't stress, because I think I worried a little bit too much. Definitely to relax. Don't stress about the switch, because at the end of the day, most of the things are still the same. You're just different place, different people, but you yourself, of course, you're going to evolve, but the way you've done things is good, and to just continue that on, and everything's going to be okay. To remember, everything's going to be okay. Yeah, don't stress. That's probably what I tell my high school self.
One piece of advice that I would give back to my high school self was definitely don't sweat the small stuff. Everything always works out in the end. Waiting for acceptances is definitely a really stressful time. It definitely was for me. But I look back at it now and I had the best year, and it definitely all worked out in the end.
This kind of to anyone, whether you're in grade 12 or 9, just make the most of it. People really get caught up in the whole applications and grades, and while those are very important, it's also really important to just enjoy yourself. When you get to college, you realize how chill and kind of carefree and fun high school was. And it's really important to, if you're able to figure that out even earlier. I know I figured that out in like grade 10. I was like, this is a really fun place. So I'd say my biggest advice would just be make the most of it, get involved, have fun, and enjoy your 4, 3, 2, or 1 year left.
Just hang out with your friends more and make sure you understand everything that's going on in the classes. Make sure you understand the concepts. Don't just learn it to do it for the test. If you know it's an important thing that you're going to use later, make sure you understand what's going on, and hang out with your friends more, because you have the time to do it.
I would have told my high school self to always plan my week ahead of time and really make a habit of it. And I know that looks different right now with everything with COVID, but I definitely recommend still trying to make that schedule because, in university it's a big transition and you have a lot less class time and a lot more time in your hands. So already having that built-in habit of just looking at the week ahead and figuring out, okay, when am I going to do this? When am I going to do that? How will I fit this in? Would really make the transition a lot easier, and you definitely feel more on top of everything.
I would advise myself to be more proactive overall. Going into my first year, I felt pretty confident in terms of academics. However, I didn't do much preparation for extracurriculars or other non-academic areas. To change that, I'd simply just think more about what I wanted to get out of my university experience and what I wanted to accomplish. I'd do a little bit of research to see what my school had to offer, and then maybe reach out to those in charge or leading certain events, extracurriculars, and clubs. I'd start to make a list of the opportunities I'd want to pursue more in the future, and then see if that would work with my schedule and if these opportunities would be feasible or not. As a general rule of thumb, in university you have to go a little bit out of your way to seek out new opportunities, because your schools will have a lot to offer, but they won't always be presented to you, so it's always good to make that extra effort, and that's what I've been learning of late.
If I could travel back in time about a year to give advice to myself as a parent who was about to see their kid graduate, I would probably say to myself, you better get to the gym because about a year from now you're going to have to do this video for transitioning to university. Oh well. But if I had to seriously give myself some advice, I would say the relationship with your kid is not over. It might be changing a little bit, but it's not over. She might not be in the bedroom down the hall anymore, and you might not be able to pick her up and put her on your shoulders to support her anymore, but you can support her in a lot of different ways.
So it's definitely a change. Big changes happen for sure. But I think the way you do things will evolve. The way you tackle different problems will change as you go through the months, and you'll find yourself getting better. Because things are definitely different from high school, but it's different in a good ways and bad ways. But you'll understand it and you'll evolve. So if you don't get it right away, it's okay, because you will as you go on if you make the right changes. One thing I found for sure is the way I found it tough to go into something feeling less confident. I felt a lot more confident going into CDS tests or exams than going into university ones. And I think that confidence kind of messed with I was a lot more stressed going in. So to understand that it's okay to maybe not know everything, to do the best you can, and it to be okay, because in reality, you're going to mess things up, and that's totally okay.
It wasn't anything too crazy. It's definitely more work. But the most important thing I'd say about that is just organization. I wasn't too organized in high school, but as soon as I got to college, I realized that there's no teacher consistently telling you don't forget to hand it in. It's on submission day, your teacher's waiting there for you to give it to them. So it's all about independence and organization. If you're organized, if you're ahead of schedule, if you're on task, if you know your due dates, it'll make your life so much easier instead of like cramming on the last day, which you will inevitably do. But the less you do of it, the better.
So having done the transition from high school to university more recently, I found the transition really smooth going from CDS to Queen's University. First of all, considering the course load goes from 8 courses to 5, like it's just that much easier, that much lighter, and especially just the teachers at CDS and a lot of the course material is the same in first year. So especially if you just pay attention to what they're telling you, take their advice, it'll help a lot.
Another piece of advice regarding academic transition is to ask your professors and TAs questions. Because when I came into university, I honestly thought that the professors and TAs wouldn't be available to ask questions and wouldn't want to. But it turns out, like, if I emailed my TA to see if we could meet, then he or she would usually get back to me within a day or two. And professors usually have office hours. So definitely asking your questions makes the academic transition so much easier. So don't be afraid to ask them. They're usually willing to help.
CDS definitely helped me transition to my post-secondary academic life at Western. I definitely think in grade 12 they were really good with setting hard deadlines, which really paid off in the end. I had really no trouble meeting deadlines for professors. The course load is really manageable, comparable to CDS. I had no problem keeping up with the work, but definitely some getting used to keeping up with professors' expectations of what they expect of you, and prepare for a dip in your marks from CDS because the grading scheme is definitely different from high school.
So, how to find the transition to uni? Personally, I didn't find it too hard. It was a little hard just because it was a change, just for the fact that it is a change. It's a little weird, but it wasn't super stressful or crazy for me. I have some notes written down here. CDS definitely gets you prepared, content-wise at least. They get you prepared for many aspects, but for definitely the best. They are definitely the best at content-wise. I had no problems in first year understanding the contents from first year. It's very good.
In terms of keeping in touch with our daughter, we didn't really stick to a strict schedule of how many times we would call or text or FaceTime. It was kind of just when we felt we needed to be in touch. We certainly spoke often, at least once a day via text or FaceTime. Definitely on Saturday nights when I knew she was going out, I wanted to ask her to text when they got home, but I didn't. But I guess that's something that you would need to discuss with your own child and figure out what works for you.
All did a great job keeping in touch with each other. For some of the important phone calls, it's usually by phone. The minor details usually come by text. But when you're used to keeping in contact with your kid, it can be a double-edged sword sometimes, because on the rare occasion where you don't hear from her when you're expecting to, you can probably get a little carried away with worrying. So one of the things we really worked on was trying to keep our cell phones charged in case there was something that we needed to check in about and we didn't have to run into a dead phone. So maybe one of those portable chargers would be my advice as well.
So I really haven't used anything, but besides asking TAs questions. TAs are the only source that I've really used, but they're still very helpful because they're very close in age to us, and they had just done this course like a year or two ago. So they can definitely answer almost all questions you would have about a specific course. So that's definitely a very helpful one for me.
For me, the most helpful campus service was definitely the registrar's office. This is the university equivalent to the SSC at CDS. So I would speak to the registrar about things like electives, my major and minor, the future, just anything. And it really was a great way to give me peace of mind because, sometimes thinking about the next 4 years of your life can definitely be daunting. And so having someone to talk to about that who knows everything about everything is extremely helpful.
So far I've used quite a few of the services, including a career center, academic advising, as well as a few more course-specific services. In general, I found them to be quite helpful, obviously some more than others. Whether they're professionally led by the university or provided by upper year students, all of them are solely meant to help students, and in a lot of cases are underutilized actually. So in general, they're a great resource to use if you have questions or if you need help in any way. Keep in mind though, that at certain times during the year, these services, especially the ones that are student run, may become oversaturated. This is possible during maybe midterm season or finals, so it's always good to keep that in mind.
In terms of campus services, most programs at all universities offer some sort of advisor service within the program or to the university more general. So I know that, for example, my program, Commerce at Queen's, has a specific group of guidance counselors that are there to help you with academic needs, with health needs, all of the above. So in my first year especially, and this year as well, I went in if I had issues with my course load, with whether I needed to know if I could drop a course, take a course, what worked with my schedule, and I think that was really helpful to know that was there and be able to use when I needed it.
And so not so specific to a certain course, a really helpful service that Queen's offers is the student academic success services and specifically the writing helpers there. So especially if you're taking courses that require a big essay or a big writing piece of paper, you book an appointment and a peer tutor will come and edit your paper for you and make sure that they know exactly what profs are looking for, TAs are looking for. A lot of them have been TAs themselves and they know how to just skim through your paper and make it the way you want it.
Some academic services that I used at my time at Western this year was academic counseling. So they really helped me with my schedule, if I wasn't sure about taking a course, about future majors for my next years at school, and definitely the student services. So they helped me set up my exam accommodations, which were writing with a computer, extra time, and it was all really helpful.
I personally didn't use any of the campus services like peer tutoring or writing centers, but I was in an arts program, so it's a little different. But I know that my engineering friends and life sci friends, they were doing like peer tutoring twice a week, and it really helped them. So I'd say if you find yourself in a position where you need it, which is totally fine, use it, because those people are just sitting there in the building waiting for you to ask them for help. So if you find yourself needing the help, definitely go and use them.
In terms of indicators, if our child needed support, it was definitely phone calls late at night, often where there were some tears, but we were able to work it through, giving her some guidance, some suggestions, and in the end allowing her to make the final decision, but just definitely to be there and answer their phone calls and their questions when they need you.
I think it's really easy to miss, particularly in the first few months, whether your kid needs a little extra support, because she's excited to be there or he's excited to be there and we're excited. But if you start to notice that sleep habits are really kind of getting out of whack, like it's okay if there's he or she's got to pull an all-nighter to for an exam or whatever, but if you start seeing the late nights and the early mornings, you know that they're probably overdoing it. And also if you can pick up on maybe they're not eating particularly well sometimes because they're just grabbing whatever they can. I mean, one strategy that we came upon was like if they have a meal plan, Sometimes you can just order a lunch to take out ahead of time, sort of a bag lunch. And even if you don't have time to eat it for lunch, maybe if you miss dinner, at least you have that to fall back on. It just got to keep an eye on them for just little telltale signs like that.
So I am really close with my family, so I would talk to my parents at least once a day, but this definitely varies between kids. Definitely reach out to them at least once a day or every other day just to check in, say hi. It makes them feel good that you're doing well, and update them on what's going on throughout your day or your week. It'll just make them really happy and also just give you a sense of home.
So I'm really close with my parents, and so is Amanda. And in first year, I would say I made it a point at least once a day, often more than once a day, to have a phone call with my parents, with my mom, my dad. They also came and visited a couple times a semester, made it a point to that. And I think it's really, really important to maintain that communication with your parents, no matter how busy, no matter how stressed you are, because the difference they could make on your stress levels, on your happiness when you're in a really difficult time in university, because the workload does get pretty hectic and pretty stressful. Like, nothing was better in first year, even though it's sometimes hard in residence to find things to do or places to go when your parents come to visit. Nothing is better than a visit from your parents. I know it's sometimes difficult with like distance and the time it takes, but a phone call, a visit, anything is important, I would say.
Our circumstance is a little different. We live together.
We live in a house together.
So that just makes it even more easy for our parents, our sister to come visit, because we're always together. We just kind of, it's easy for us to line up our schedules. And so especially even if siblings or students are there not living together, not there, like, nothing is better than when parents come up, they take their kid out for lunch, they take them out for the day, the afternoon. It's so nice just to get your mind off of school and have that just day off, weekend off, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was always really close to my family, so it was always a priority for me. I would say regardless of however you prioritize it, it's really important to pay attention to keeping in contact with your parents, just for your mental health, your happiness, just your ability to assimilate. I know a friend who, the day his parents left, he thought, it's all about independence, so he stopped talking to his parents for a while, and he wasn't able to assimilate as well as everyone else, who you're talking to your parents about your day, keeping them informed, so that they're still a part of your journey, and that makes you assimilate to university way easier. So yeah, definitely prioritize it. It really helps.
So, to be honest, I'm pretty bad. I don't get homesick, so I end up my mom usually just ended up calling me, so I have to actively think about keeping in contact with my parents. So sorry, Mom. But I definitely think it's good to, if you are like me and you don't get homesick, try to make an effort to keep in contact with your family. Maybe not just your mom, but your siblings too, or whoever you're close with.
Navigating your relationship with your parents during university is definitely a team effort. What I did was I reached out to my parents when I was excited about something, or when I wanted to update them on something happening in my life, or if I had any housekeeping questions and things like that. And they reached out to me to see how I was doing and if I needed anything, and to just check in. But they weren't constantly asking me multiple times a day, how are you doing? Did you do this? Da, da, da. And so because they weren't doing that, I felt more inclined to reach out to them. So it's definitely helpful to have a relationship with your parents during university, because university can be challenging sometimes, and it's nice to have them to lean on. But of course, independence is also important and really nice. So it's nice to have both.
So what was really important there is scheduling. Having a schedule that blocks the time you're going to study, versus the times you're going to hang out with friends and do other stuff is really important, because the time can blend in so easily. Where you're studying and then you're supposed to hang out with some friends, and maybe you stay a little bit too late, or you're hanging out with friends and then that takes up a lot of the study time, and that can cause problems where you have to catch up later. So having a schedule of what you're going to do at a certain time, and then making that switch when it's time, with actually blocking, as you've done at CDS probably, is, I found, a really good skill to have at university. Something to definitely practice while you're there.
I definitely maintained a good balance between my school and social life. I definitely went out with my friends once a week, but if I felt that I had too much work to do, I would stay in, even if my friends were going out. But having a balanced social life is a really good kind of relaxer. It helps you just have fun and kind of forget about all of your stresses from school. So it's definitely good to maintain a balance. So once I ended a midterm at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, and then I went out with my friends an hour and a half later. So I would definitely keep that good balance going on.
So balancing your social life and your academic life is really what you make of it. So you can really focus more on your social life, you can focus more on your academics, but the balance really comes of where you prioritize your time. So if you have something due on the Friday, get it done the Monday, get it done the Tuesday. You have the rest of the week to hang out with friends, go out if you want. You don't need to go out every single night of the week.
And there may be pressure to do that your first couple weeks.
You may be pressured to do that, and if you want to, go ahead, but thinking that doing things the night before they're due, it might happen, you might be able to, but it'll really catch up to you. So prioritizing your time, you'll always have time for friends, you will make time, you have all the time in the world there. So just balancing your time and make sure you prioritize what needs to get done first.
Like I said, I mean, it's definitely more work than high school, but it isn't anything unmanageable. What I would say about social, it's really different compared to high school, where you go to school, then go home, then come back to school. Here you live and eat and do everything with all your classmates. So like, you'll finish class latest like 6 p.m. You'll be back in your dorm, and the 50 people on your floor are just sitting there, especially in the first week, not knowing anyone, wanting to know people, and waiting for you to stop. So understanding that first week, and specifically the first day, everybody's in the same boat, and it's really important that specifically on that first day, leave your room, everyone's going to be in the hallway, and just introduce yourself, and that'll just help so much in your ability to assimilate, your happiness, your enjoyment. My best friends were on my floor. They were down the hall, and it was by just on the day one, I went out and then we all said hi, and the whole floor ended up being friends. So yeah, just taking that effort, whatever you put in, you get out of it. And it's really, I know everyone says that and it's not like a broken record, but it really is the key to making friends. Just as much effort you put into making friends, that's the result you'll get.
Is how did you balance social life and school? Well, in first year, most people will go on res. And so you're always, I feel it's weird because when you're on res, you're always at school. So being at school all the time means you can kind of do anything at any time. There's no separate thing like in high school. It's like school time, home time. There's no, it's just always school. It feels very different. It felt very different for me like that, in that sense where I can do anything I want at any time. But one of the first things, this is something that, one of the first things I heard from a prof very early on, like during Frosh week, like getting into university, a prof told me this, and I still remember it now because I think it's kind of funny, and I think it's kind of true and like a good piece of advice, is sleep more than you study more than you party, and party as much as you can. So I think like that's a pretty good piece of advice. Like I totally agree with that.
Balancing social life and school life is key at university. This is a place where your future is going to take off, and so school is really important. But also, this is a place where you're going to meet a lot of your lifelong friends, so making social life a priority is also important. So a couple strategies I have to balance the two would be, one, definitely join a club. That's what I did this year, and it was so great to meet like-minded people. And also, the club meets at a certain time every week, so it's really easy to integrate that social time into your schedule. Also, a lot of the hangouts at university are spontaneous, like in residence or the dining hall or something like that. So, one thing that I would recommend, and something that I did, was I just would, before I agreed to a hangout, I'd just step back and take a second and just think, okay, like, can I actually afford the time right now? Do I have like a crazy big deadline coming up? And then I would either go to the hangout or not, depending on the situation. So those are two strategies that really helped me, and I hope it would help you too.
How did you balance social life and school life? This is something that I definitely found challenging, and I'm sure a lot of others have too. The biggest thing for me is creating a healthy and sustainable schedule that I can maintain throughout the year. One thing I like to do is to prioritize activities to do in my free time, whether that be participating in extracurriculars, exercising, or spending time with friends. I just like to do that because it'll help me use my free time wisely rather than letting it go to waste. One thing that I do and a lot of others do is studying in groups occasionally so that you're being productive, but you also have the social aspect as well. In first year particularly, living in residence, you will have a lot of social interactions, probably with your roommates or those on your floor. You'll go and get meals together, sometimes go to class if you're in similar programs, and usually just spend a lot of time in the evening together as well too. So there's always that social aspect in first year.
It was definitely difficult being less involved in the daily life of our daughter as she transitioned to university. For so many years, driving her to early morning practices, picking them up after games, knowing what day of the cycle it was for what she had at school is very different. So it was definitely hard to let go, but she often shared her day and what was going on throughout her day and what was on her schedule. So that definitely gave us a sense of accessibility to what she was doing on a daily basis.
I think I navigated not being involved in her daily life as much really, really well. I'd been dreading it for years, put a lot of worry into that about what those days would be like. Expected to be really sad and really didn't feel sad. Just so happy and proud that she was on her way. But not having her around every day does kind of sneak up on you a little bit. I remember a few weeks in, and I was at the grocery store, and I was just looking around at what we're going to have for dinner, and I decided on broccoli because she likes broccoli, and I thought, well, she'll probably want broccoli tonight. And then I realized she's not at home for dinner tonight, and got actually a little teared up by the broccoli area. So I'm sure people walked by me and looked at me and go, boy, that guy's really upset about the quality of the broccoli. But it just it sneaks up a little bit on you in the early going, but it went much better than I thought, and a lot of that has to do with how well she communicated with us. She sent us her schedule, so we sort of had an idea of what classes she had or when she was having breaks, and that was kind of nice to know how her week would shape up. And I just maybe I shouldn't have been doing all that worrying all those years, because it really went a lot better than I was expected to.
So there's lots of stuff that you need to bring to res. Most people would probably say bring a coffee pot, bring your bedding, but I definitely recommend bringing a thermometer because one time during the year I got really, really sick and I had to send my roommate out to the pharmacy to get me a thermometer because I didn't bring one to school. So definitely bring a thermometer.
So the one thing I brought that I found very useful was a small whiteboard and a marker, because I was able to write questions I had from my profs, write reminders to myself, and do practice problems, because it's really easy to erase on a small whiteboard. So if I'm doing problems or whatever I'm doing on there, writing notes, it's really easy to make changes. And that was something I found that was really nice to have, was just a small whiteboard to just do things on. And you can do the same thing in an agenda or any other document. You can, like, any other thing to just write yourself things on. So definitely a notebook, a whiteboard, something where you can give yourself reminders, take notes of stuff, just where you can get your thoughts down on something. That's really important, I think.
I honestly suggest getting a TV. I know it's maybe it's kind of a pricey thing, but it's definitely really important. I'm not saying spend like multiple hours on end in your room, but making sure your room is personalized and a place you can go to just chill, whether it be a TV or speakers or anything like that, headphones. Personalizing your room is really important. Posters, especially, instead of item, I just say make sure your room is really personalized, so it's your space.
3 items that I'd recommend bringing to residence are a printer, hole puncher, and mini fridge. There's a lot of times at university where you have to print something last minute, and it is so relaxing having a printer right in your dorm room. Also, hole puncher is great because you can easily organize your binders, and having a mini fridge is awesome because oftentimes the common room fridge can smell kind of bad. It can also get really packed, and sometimes your food can go missing. So it's really great to have your own stash.
When our daughter came home for the weekends or on special holidays, it was definitely exciting. We were always at the train station or the bus station waiting for her with open arms. She definitely was catered to. We realized that the house was less messy with one less child at home, but she definitely got preferred treatment for the 48 to 72 hours she was home.
At this point, I'm supposed to address how the house rules changed whenever she would come home for holidays or the weekend. I guess we don't have enough house rules because really nothing changed. It was just great to spend time all together. So I don't really have anything to address in that area. So I'm just going to take the time to thank everyone at, can I show this logo, or does it have to be blurred out? Or thank everybody from CDS that did such a wonderful job in preparing her and for preparing us for this amazing time in our lives.
A piece of advice I'd give to you parents is don't worry. When I started university, I knew my parents were of course worried, it's only natural, but what they did, which was great, was they were really encouraging and really excited for me, and that gave me a lot of confidence. So, we're going to make a lot of mistakes. It's inevitable. We're starting a new chapter of our life, but you don't have to worry because we know who to call.
I think the advice we would give to parents is just make sure you check in. It's so easy as soon as your child leaves to just think that the communication is done or something like that. And I think it's just important that a text message is sent at least once a day, a physical conversation is had every couple of days to just make sure that we're okay. Like, it's so easy to be overwhelmed with stress and things like that when we're at school alone. And as much as freedom is nice and having fun is great, I think there's a really big importance of keeping up that steady communication with your student. And I think your child, and I think if you were to see them or hear from them, and you would know if they don't sound okay. And I think that's what we would say, is just make sure you keep up that communication with them and check on them as much as you can.
I really just say there isn't one way to do the supportive parental role. What I mean by that is, and again, I may again sound like a broken record, but every single kid is different and needs different things. And my mom was told in the beginning, don't meet your kid till Thanksgiving. And it just didn't make any sense for us. It was like I wanted to meet them earlier. So I'd say to parents, knowing that you have a really important role in your kids' time at university, and to make sure that you're connected to what they're doing in university. You don't have, whether it's meeting them once a month, once a week, understand that your kid needs a different thing than every other kid, and that there isn't one way that like the handbook says. So yeah, just really understand that your kid definitely needs a close relationship with you to succeed at university.
Advice you give to parents. Sometimes your kid might not get homesick like me, but don't always take, I mean, it's different for everybody, but if they're not always in contact with you, calling you, they might just be adjusting pretty well. Like I didn't have much trouble, so they might just be adjusting well. I mean, not for everybody. Maybe there is something up if they're not keeping in contact with you very often, and you're the one who has to keep calling them. But sometimes it might just be, oh, they just forgot because they are really, truly are just doing all right. So
some advice that I would give to parents was definitely let your kids have fun. Don't hover, be a helicopter parent. I know it's difficult, but try to let them be independent. They're living on their own. This is their kind of first time being real adults. Definitely check in with them once a day, but don't text them at night, say, oh, text me when you get back. Just let them be. But definitely let them have fun, but always be there for them.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for a wonderful evening. Thanks to our alumni and our alumni parents and our panelists for helping us answer some of your questions, and hopefully we've been able to reassure you a little and given you a few tricks up your sleeve as you head towards this very, very special stage in your life as you transition from students and parents who are alumni and post-secondary students and parents. We know this is not the term we'd have wished for any of your young people. They're so fabulous, and we would have loved to have spent so much more time with them in the building this term. But it wasn't to be, and we've made the best of it, and they've made the very best of it too. Rest assured, we've got some tricks up our sleeve to help celebrate them over the next few weeks, and we also, of course, will have a really special celebration on stage, one way or another, when the time is right. They will have their moment of glory. So in the meantime, do join us afterwards on the Google Meet if you have more questions. Do stay safe, stay well, stay healthy, take good care of one another. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk very soon.